Good afternoon, everybody. Calm Biker here. On a lunchtime ride, just heading out to pick up Mrs. C from the hospital. She's been doing a volunteering again today. And on the Drift HD, the Drift Ghost S is with Mrs. C at the minute. It's getting posted on the way back home. Back to Action Cameras to see if they can repair or replace it. Hopefully I'll have a nice working Drift Ghost S in the not too distant future. Should have posted this morning, but I forgot to bring my money with me, so got to the post office and didn't have any money to actually post the thing. Quick topic for you, and I wasn't planning on doing any vlogs with the HD, only because I know the quality is not going to be as good, and I know I'm going to be messing about doing the setup. But something happened to me when I took Mrs. C to the hospital this morning, so I thought I would share. And also I was having a conversation, or a comment conversation anyway, with Lech on a bike, who's doing the ROSPA side of the advanced stuff as opposed to the IAM that I'm doing, and it's quite apt. We're talking about filtering. So I'd just like to explain before we start that filtering on a bike in the UK completely legal. So you can be going up between lines of traffic, you can go down the right hand side of traffic. It's completely legal. A lot of car drivers think it isn't, but that's only because they haven't read the highway code, or at least haven't absorbed it. It's actually taught as part of the advanced riding, and in some places it's taught as part of your standard test, because you know, if you're in London where it's really busy, you might find you have to filter to make any progress at all. So it's completely legal, but it's not without its risks. And the main risks are people closing the door on you, squeezing you, that kind of thing, either on purpose or because they don't know you're there, or opening the car door, things like that. But basically doing silly things, changing lane unexpectedly. If you want an example of that, I'll put a link to a video by Phil480 where he was filtering down the right hand side of traffic, and a van just pulled out in front of him and he actually collided helmet to mirror. Anyway, I'm at the place where the incident happened. So I was coming down here and I'd filtered down a line of traffic and then pulled in front of a car. And as I came through this bit, it's where you get to one of the dangers of filtering. This is now a lane that's just wide enough, just over a car, you can see that there. So I positioned myself about here, so there's not really enough room for a car to get through because of the cycle lane. And one of the car drivers I'd filtered past obviously took offence and decided that as I was just going steady with the traffic, same speed of the traffic, that they would use the cycle lane, and they even squeaked the tyres a bit on a pavement. That's how much they got over to get past me, to squeeze past me on the left hand side, and then slightly start to move outwards as if they were pushing me onto the wrong side of the road. And that's one of the dangers, unfortunately, of filtering. So, in answer to Lech on a Bike's question, he was asking what had they said to me on the IAM advanced riding about filtering. Basically they said, if it's safe to do it, do it. If you can make progress by filtering, then you should filter. And if you don't do it on your test, there's a likelihood that the examiner will actually mark you down for not making progress, for being too tentative. However, they also said that whenever you do filter, you must look ahead and see the point at which you're going to rejoin the flow. So you've got to have a gap to get into. They're saying don't just filter down the right hand side and squeeze in and hope for the best. Actually get into gaps, which is one of the things I did this morning. And the car the car who left a gap and who I went in front of was the one that took umbrage at the idea. But yeah, they want you to make progress, they want you to filter from the IAM perspective, or at least from what I've been told, but you have to do it in a safe way. They don't want you to filter to the front necessarily. If there's zigzags at the front, they say you shouldn't filter to the front because that's potentially technically overtaking, and you could even get points on your license for that. Although I think they'd have to be pretty harsh to you. But they're saying don't just generally filter to the front, unless of course at the front the car has left a big gap in front that you can filter into. And then the other thing to watch out for always is that that gap that you're heading for could close. You know, the car could realise it's left a big gap and pull into it. So you always need to have a backout plan. So, you know, if that car pulls forward, is there room for you to go somewhere else and get back in? So that's the kind of the advice I've been given so far on the IAM, and they may tell me more as we get into actually doing it. We've not really had the chance to do any filtering yet. But the only other thing to say on filtering is it is potentially risky. But then again, it's also potentially risky to sit behind a car where you could get rear-ended. So you've got to kind of look at which is the lesser of two evils and just make sure you're doing it safely. You're also likely, if you do clip somebody or they squeeze a gap without knowing you're there and you hit them, you're likely to be at fault when it comes to insurance. If it goes to court, you'll probably be found at least a percentage at fault. So you do have to be extra careful that you're not clipping people or going into gaps that are likely to close. And yep, as I'm going to show you now, I'll show you in the clip at the end of this video, you are also at risk of annoying people who are stupid or rather ignorant of the law, and who believe that if somebody breaks a law near them, that they then have the right to do silly things and use their car as a weapon. And to be honest, even if I had been doing something really stupid, like filtering at 80 miles an hour and slamming on the brakes and stopping in front of them in a cloud of smoke, even if that were true, they're not a policeman, they don't have the right to punish you. So if you're one of those car drivers, just think about it. You're driving 2 tons of metal. You could easily kill somebody in your anger, and that would leave you then with that on your conscience for the rest of your life. Now I must apologise for 2 things. First thing is, I got quite annoyed at the car driver and had a bit of a shout at them. I've said before, when I've got Mrs. C on the back, I can get annoyed more easily by people doing things that are potentially dangerous to her. So I did get a bit annoyed at her. Didn't swear or anything, I don't think, but I did have a shout at her. I asked her where she got her driving licence, and she said the same place as me, which is why I think that she probably thinks filtering is illegal. And the other thing I must apologise for, it was my first go with the Drift HD, and I'd been fiddling about with all exposure settings and the angle on the side of my hat and positioning the mic and all that kind of stuff without actually testing it. I hadn't had the opportunity to test it yet, and I hadn't realised that the one thing I hadn't set was the angle of rotation on the Drift lens. So if you haven't got a Drift, you can twist the lens through almost 360 degrees, so the lens was almost upside down and at a weird angle. So I'm either going to have to show you it at a weird angle, I'll flip it back the right way up, or I'm going to have to twist it, and then there'll be either some zooming or some corners that are black or something like that. So apologies for that. Thanks for watching, everyone. Ride safe, and I'll talk to you all again soon. 0, whatever it is. I think I used to have it on mine. It's 1, but it's on the 0 at the moment. And it's at a slightly higher angle than I would normally have, I think. So we'll see how that comes out. It's not as high as the angle I have on the Ghost S. It's 1 lower than that. I can't remember if that's what I had it at before or if I had it completely horizontal before. But anyway, we shall see how that comes out. And also I had a problem with the microphone. The little foam rubber bit, while it's been sat on my shelf, has perished. and just fell in half when I What are you doing? Are you an idiot? What are you doing? What's she doing? Not a clue. Where did you learn to drive? Where? What do you think you're doing? Undertaking, you're an idiot. You're an idiot that's going through a red light. You're blind and you're stupid.